Hi, everybody. So I sat down to make a top 10 list of episodes and ended up picking out 16 episodes that I absolutely love, so I ranked them and made a video about it. Yeehaw, let's go. Escape to the House of Mummies Part 2. Even though this is at the bottom of my list of favorite episodes, I think it may be in my top 3 funniest episodes. None of the Osiris cult stuff matters at all plot-wise, so half of this episode exists to be a joke machine. Meanwhile, there is an actual story with Dr. Orpheus and Dr. Venture having a science versus magic feud, which I'm a sucker for. Plus, we get the introduction of H. John Benjamin as the Master, and there's even time for a kinda sweet sentimental moment with Billy's old Rusty Venture lunchbox. Now Museum, Now You Don't. My favorite of the once-a-season Powder Keg episodes. I love the opening scene with the original Team Venture fighting the Fraternity of Torment, and I love that we kind of get an origin story for Spider Skull Island, which I never even considered that we needed an origin story for. Dr. Venture just looking around and seeing tensions rise and just deciding to peace out is so antithetical to making good TV, but so true to the character it's perfect. And that ending with Pirate Captain realizing Professor Impossible was trying to kill himself? So good. Pomp and Circuitry. This episode kicks ass and nobody talks about it. I love the arc of the non-inanimate object version of the Revenge Society, and this is the start of it. This episode has so much cool action too. Phantom Limb is all too often assigned the role of stuffy bureaucrat, but we definitely see him at his most badass multiple times in this episode. Not to mention Hank being totally awesome in that Sphinx training scene as well. 20 Years to Midnight. Third episode in a row featuring Professor Impossible. I've always felt that this episode would make a great outline for a Venture Brothers movie. The Grand Galactic Inquisitor is and always has been hysterical, and this episode brings back Pirate Captain, whom we all probably assumed we'd never see again, as a regular member of the cast. Solid episode all the way around. Powerless in the Face of Death. The Season 2 premiere is a promise of how good Season 2 will be. I love the fake-out title sequence, and the opening with Everybody's Free is easily one of the most fondly remembered in the entire series. And as previously mentioned, love those magic versus science debates. Operation Prom. For some time I thought to myself, is Operation Prom that good, or does it just have an amazing last 5 minutes? An inversion of Pixar's Up, if you will. But no, Operation Prom is good throughout. The stuff with 21 realizing 24 is just in his head is brilliantly executed. The animation is stellar throughout, and yeah, those last 5 minutes are pure perfection. Seriously, peak Venture Brothers, peak television. Everybody Comes to Hanks. Much like Operation Prom, I'm not making any waves by declaring this episode an all-timer. It won the title of all-time best episode in my bracket competition I held this past March, and maybe this is a weird statement, but I don't think Orpheus has ever been animated better than he is in this episode. Maybe it's the brightness of his clothes after the other black and white scenes. I don't know. Pinstripes and Poltergeists. This episode features the return of Brock Samson. I didn't even realize how much I missed him until I saw him in his Sphinx getup. I know I've said this before, but if you just binged the show for the first time over the course of a couple weeks, there's just no way you can possibly emotionally relate to the absence of Brock Samson that us OG fans felt. What was maybe a couple days for you was like 15 months for OG fans. Also, 21 being a proper badass is always fantastic to see. Plus, bonus, 24 makes his return as a ghost. Bot Seeks Bot. Season 5 is my least favorite season, but it does include 2 of my all-time favorite episodes. The first of which is Bot Seeks Bot. Starting with the funeral, finally getting to see the Council of 13 in the flesh, all the super spy OSI stuff, all the awkward hilarity of a bad date, and the setup for a big reveal with Vendetta. This episode has it all. The Better Man. So, weird thing about me, I love talking about relationships and breakups and heartbreak, and I love Dr. Orpheus. So put those two things together in one episode, and I'm a happy guy. I don't think this episode is one that comes up often in the greater discussion of best episodes, but I think it's one of the best. OSI Love You. My other favorite episode from Season 5. OSI Love You is such a stylish episode. Venture Brothers is really good at playing with their formula on occasion without it feeling like it's breaking the show, and OSI Love You is my favorite example of that. I don't think there was even 1 second where I thought Molotov was still in that strength suit when Brock threw it, but it never stopped me from digging this episode. Victor Echo November. Classic episode. This one has great comedy, great action, and stories that converge in a really great and natural way. Dr. Venture using Christmas decorations as first aid is such a goddamn brilliant joke. and that simple line where Brock says,
"We might not win this one. You get to the panic room."
Okay.
just instantly raises the stakes and makes everything feel so much more serious and intense. Ghosts of the Sargasso. This is my season 1 pick for best episode. The first time I saw this, I didn't even get the David Bowie joke, but it didn't matter because this episode is damn near perfect. This episode is and always will be my go-to answer to the question, I want to get my friend to watch the show, which episode should I show them first? The Doctor is Sin. I've talked about it before twice on this channel, but this is the episode that made me fall in love with the show. Before this episode, I really liked the Venture Brothers, but after this episode, I loved it. Killinger rules, seeing everybody put on a show for General Manhowers delights me to no end, and Dr. Venture being made into a supervillain completely blindsided me. The Invisible Hand of Fate. I feel slightly bad about how many of my favorite episodes kinda don't feature the Venture Brothers, but I guess I like them because they're more unique. I'm also realizing that something I love about the show is when they make me care about something I didn't previously care about, and I never had given a shit about Billy Quizboy's origin story until this episode came along, and it turned out I should have been wanting for a Billy Quizboy origin story since day one. Arrears in Science. And speaking of things I didn't realize I cared about revisiting, The Problem Light. I thought it'd be kind of a cop-out to pick the entire Morphic trilogy as my favorite episode of the series, so if I had to pick just one, it would be Arrears in Science. This episode was basically the episode that made me want to make a YouTube series talking about callbacks in the first place. This episode feels like the reward I get for being obsessed with the Venture Brothers for years and years. Arrears in Science has action, comedy, callbacks, flashbacks that recontextualize the present, and an anticlimax. The perfect episode of the Venture Brothers. And that's that. Feel free to debate in the comments about why my choices were terrible and stupid. Tune in next week for a video about getting your friends to watch the Venture Brothers. Have a great day, and go Team Venture.